All right, let's go ahead and get started. Please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. Tell us about the weather and where you're from. I am happy to kick off our second SLO talk of the semester. Our official first, the one last week was a little introduction for SLO coordinators. It is with great excitement that we introduce our speaker today for today's Friday SLO talk is Professor Suzanne Freeman from the Fire Technology Department at Santa Ana College. Professor Freeman is not only celebrated for her exceptional contributions in the field of fire technology, but has also been honored with multiple awards, including SAC's Distinguished Faculty of the Year, the Innovation Award for Excellence, and the remarkable title of Crime Fighter of the Year in Fountain Valley in Southern California. She's known for her energetic and dynamic speaking style. Professor Freeman brings a wealth of experience and a passion for competency-based education, known frequently as CBE, to the Friday SLO talks. She lives by the mantra, "We are learning for a living, not a test," a philosophy that has guided her approach to education and her efforts to prepare students for real-world challenges. In her presentation, Professor Freeman will take us on an interactive journey through the application of CBE and fire technology. This session promises to be a hands-on experience where you will learn how to define and assess essential skills, discover the power of hands-on learning and bringing theory to life, and understand how the Canvas learning management system can transform the way educators track student progress beyond mere grade issuance. Today's talk will equip you with the knowledge and tools to implement CBE in your classrooms. Prepare to be inspired, to engage with practical interactions, and to leave with a roadmap for enhancing competency attainment for your students. Please join us in welcoming Professor Suzanne Freeman, a visionary in the field of education and a true advocate for competency attainment, to share her insights and experiences. This promises to be an enlightening session that you won't want to miss. And Professor Freeman, I failed to introduce myself and our other coach that's going to be moderating. So before I hand it over to you, please let me interrupt and introduce myself and Alicia, who's here to help moderate the chat. So I am Amanda Tainter. I am the president of coaches, along with Alicia Betancourt. If Alicia, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Hi, everyone. My name is Alicia Betancourt. I'm from San Diego City College, where we are having amazing weather today, thankfully. And I will be here to help moderate the chat.
And Jarek is our founding director. He is on the phone, so he won't be moderating as much, but I wanted to make sure and give him a shout out. Eliza is also going to be joining us in about a half an hour to help moderate. So please, if you have any questions for Suzanne, put them in the chat, or also be posting a Padlet link if you want to put your questions in it there as well. Suzanne, would you like questions to be interrupted while you talk, or are you going to stop at key points for us to ask questions?
I would say I am open to both.
All right. Great. Well, now, without further ado, I will hand it over to you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Well, welcome, everybody, and thank you so much for having me here today. I am Suzanne Freeman, and I'm going to be your tour guide for the next little bit. So let me share my screen, and that's not the first one I wanted to share, but that's usually the way this stuff goes. Bam. So I'm going to share a Padlet with you as well. So here is the QR code for that. And I believe I've got, and I know that's moved away, so let me throw that in. So I just put the, nope, I did not. Wrong link, almost. Okay, now in the link, or in the chat, is the link to Padlet, and there is the QR code if you prefer to use that. So I've got a lot of stuff I want to talk to you about today, and there's a ton of links, and I may or may not be able to talk about all the links, but you'll be able to take them with you. So I'm going to let you grab this and get into that. We're going to be moving into a number of third-party sites today. We're going to play some games. And I'm really excited to come and talk to you about competency-based education. Now, in the fire service, this is what we do. And my background prior to going into the fire service was working with severely and profoundly developmentally disabled people. And when I moved into that, the first thing I was taught was developmental education. And everything we did was based upon outcomes and what we were working towards. This was a very good fit when I moved to the fire service. And so hopefully everybody has gotten this. So I want to take you on a little tour of what we've done in the fire service in the United States and what we've done with our outcomes. So when we talk about competency-based education, the focus here is on what students can do. What are they taking away from the class? And this is something we've been doing forever. When we talk about doing away with grades, right? In my classroom, the mantra is you're learning for a living, not a test. But the reality is they have to pass the test to earn to get the living. So there's both a test and a set of skills that they need to have. And in the fire service, that's really important. So hopefully everybody has this. So I can go ahead and move that away and then put us back over to here. So here's a giant set of bookmarks that you can come in and play with. And I've got them set up. It's sort of the way I like to set up a lesson with an introduction, some engagement, time to explore and learn the information, and then apply it, assess it, and then extend it and get even better with it. So you've got access to this. And so I want to go through and talk about some of this. And like I said, we're not going to look at everything, but you can come back and see some of it. So starting over here with the introduction, you see there's a 5-minute university. This one is a classic. So this is Father Guido Sarducci, and he's talking about education, right? And about what you learn when you go to university and what you leave with and what you come out with 5 years later. And so I'm not going to play it, but you've got it and you can go watch it. It's old and the quality of it is not great because it's old, but it is closed caption. So it's there for you if you want to give it a try. But so I want to talk to you. Well, let me back up a little bit and stay with the idea of firefighting. So when we talk about being a firefighter, that's a thing that a lot of people want to do. And what I want to share with you here is the Tucson Fire Department. Tucson Fire Department in Arizona is hiring. And what it takes to be a firefighter is you have to be 18, you have to have a high school diploma, a valid driver's license with 2 years of driving, an Arizona EMT certificate upon graduation from their academy. So they're going to teach you this. You just have to be willing to learn it. And you have to meet the physical abilities required for firefighting duties. That's it. That's all it takes. A little rubric, when we take a look at that, we're looking at some basic skill sets, right? You live to be 18, and you've been driving for 2 years. And then it has the application process. So when you look at this, they're going to put you through an academy. They're going to train you to be an EMT. Then they're going to hire you and pay you. And all you have to do is be 18 years old and have been driving for 2 years and have graduated high school. But is that really all it takes? We're learning for a living, not a test. And the fact of the matter is, that's not all it takes. It takes a lot more than just that. And so if I come back over here and I go, well, okay, let's take a look at what it really does take. And so when we come in here and we take a look at what they're actually looking for, what we see is not just a set of skills, but competencies. What's the difference between a skill and a competency. A competency is more than just a skill. We teach a lot of skills and we teach knowledge. Competencies are both of those things. They're skills and their knowledge. And so we started off with, we have to be 18 and you have to be able to drive. That's a skill set. But what do you do with that? What type of judgment do you have? What's your attitude? Attitude is part of competency. So competency is going to include skills, knowledge, and attitude. And attitude encompasses a bunch of stuff. So now we've got more in there. What's your judgment like? What can you do with this information? And then we move in and we get more qualifications. And as we start looking at the qualifications, once again, we're looking at skill sets. So I unlocked the waiting room by accident a little bit earlier. And we were talking. And if you happened in when I was talking, here's the thing. So I was working with people that were severely and profoundly developmentally disabled, and we're working on outcomes. And I moved to the fire service, and the fire service is very much focused on skill sets. And this is in the late 90s, where we decided that firefighters in the US really should all be trained to the same standard. And so from all over the country, we had representatives at the National Fire Academy, and we went through these standards. Today, if you go in, and I've got a link here, you can go in and look at the occupational outlook for firefighters. And it'll tell you, and this hasn't always been the case, that right now it's pretty good. And then you can go over to ONET. And in ONET, they give us the skills and the knowledge necessary to be a firefighter. And so here we've got tasks, and we've got technology skills, work activities, detailed work activities. And as you start looking at this, I would challenge you to evaluate which of these you already have. Many of you have inspected equipment or structures. You've looked at inventory or gone through and checked out materials or equipment to make sure it was working. Many of you have experience assisting and caring for others, operating vehicles, making decisions and solving problems, performing general physical activities. Well, then you could be a firefighter. But wait, Suzanne, there's more. And it's like, yes, there is more. Have you rescued people from hazardous situations? Some of you have. Can you select tools, equipment, or technology? Can you locate fires or fire danger areas? Under work context, face-to-face discussions, contact with others, work with work groups or teams, physical proximity, wearing PPE. So as we look at it, well, okay, now we're back to that stuff is common. So when we start taking a look at competency-based education, what is it and why? Well, here's the deal. Everybody's coming here because they want a better job. And they're hoping that whatever class they're taking is going to help them do that. But they don't always know how. And they don't always know how to articulate that. Why am I in an English class? I literally had a fire chief say to me, Suzanne, why do they have to take algebra? They don't need algebra. And it's like, they have algebra before they get to us. And he goes, but they don't use it. I said, but you do. You use it every day. Come into my classroom and ask my students. And he did. And they said, yes, we use it every day. And then they explained to him how they use it every day. So I'm going to share a story with you. We're a CTE program. you can come into our program and you can get straight A's in our classes, and then you can never be hired as a firefighter. You can never come to our school, never go through training, apply for Los Angeles or Orange County OCFA, and you can be hired to become fire chief. The grades don't matter. They help. They absolutely do help. It's part of the hiring process, right? They'll take a look at that because past behavior predicts future behavior, and we have to be lifelong learners. But what matters is what you can do. So when I first came to Santa Ana College and was asked to teach a class, they gave me a final exam that another professor had written. And they said, "Here, Suzanne, you can use this." And I'm like, "Great, that's a test I don't have to write." And then I looked at it, and the first question on that test was, what was the Roman name for fire marshal? Roman name for fire marshal. Here's the thing. In all my years in the fire service, I'd never gotten a memo saying Thursday was Roman day, and we had to call the fire marshal by his or her Roman name. That never happened. But I sat on oral boards doing interviews with people coming in to the fire service, and they couldn't answer basic questions about fire prevention, but they could tell me the Roman name for fire marshal, which didn't help us. So the question is, what are you taking away? What are you learning? And what can you do with that information? And that's what's happening out in industry right now. They're hiring people with degrees. And they're going, but what does the degree mean? What does it mean when you have a degree from Santa Ana College? What does it mean when you have a degree from your college or a certificate? What's behind that? What does an employer believe? And this was a question that came up recently when we were talking about credit for prior learning. And in looking at that, do we give out credit without assuring that the level of knowledge that goes along with that? So we've been working in, so they've done these studies, and what they found is that what we're teaching students in our class, our outcomes, are not in alignment with what is needed in the workforce. And competency-based education is what they're looking at in order to fill in that gap. And so as I show you, okay, so this is what's required for firefighter. And we can go into related careers. You may not be teaching CTE, but your students all have goals. And whatever those goals are using the information that you're presenting in your class. And so I'm going to ask you to start thinking for just a little bit about what skills students are taking away from your class and what competencies. So the skills are those little things that we're teaching them, and the competencies of having them put those skills and the knowledge all together and being able to create or solve problems or do things with that. So keep thinking about that, because I'm going to come back and ask you about it in just a little bit. So, okay, so back to my story of being old. So we decided to sit down and take a look at the curriculum. And the goal was to give firefighters to give curriculum that was standardized throughout the country. That was the word I was looking for. So this is Fire Service Higher Education Initiative. And this is where we all sat down and said, here is what we are going to design our training to. And we started off with what we call JPRs, and that is job performance requirements. And this has been done on a national scale. The National Fire Protection Association does that for our entire industry. And then we pick that up and we design the curriculum based upon that. So it really does provide us with a great starting point. So here you can see a section on competencies and the professional designations. And this is going to explain the matrix. And so I'm going to go ahead and open this up. This is an Excel spreadsheet. And this is a roadmap, career roadmap for anybody in the fire service. Okay, where did it go? Let's try that one again. So when you come in and take a look at this matrix, so at the bottom, you're going to see SFO, MFO, AFO, EFO, and FPO. And each one of those go back to
I should say, your screen
yes.
didn't change to share the
okay.
spreadsheet.
Thank you. Can you see it now?
Not yes.
Yes.
Yep, there it is.
Okay, sweet. I don't think I can. Okay, so on here you can see this is for a supervisory fire officer. And over here we've got the competency, the ability to write detailed prose. You probably wouldn't have thought about that, right? When you see a fire officer at a fire, she's got the ability to write detailed prose. That's a requirement. Now, next to it, you see the correlating NFPA, JPR. Remember, I told you JPR stands for Job Performance Requirements. So if we go to NFPA Standard 1021 and we go to section 4.2.1, it's going to go through there and list the requirement. And that's what each one of those are going to do for different positions in the fire service that are at a supervisory level. And then it goes over and this is professional standards. And then over here are basic educational standards. So you can see the ACE recommendation, and then you can see college courses that would align with this competency. And so we would look at that and go, okay, you want to be a captain. Have you had an English class or something similar to it to develop this competency? So it doesn't matter how you get this competency. The competency is what's important to us. Understanding basic interpersonal, group, and public communication skills. So as it goes through here, you can see the alignments. Question?
Yeah, a quick question. So when you're looking at aligning on the GE courses or the English composition, are you looking at the student learning outcomes, or I don't want to rabbit trails too much, but what process do you use typically to make the decision that this will cover that, like the English composition will cover that SFO?
I'll tell you, the way they come up with that is by a committee. It is a committee of fire officers that are on this particular committee, the Fire Service Higher Education Committee, and they all sat down and said, okay, this is what we, based upon NFPA and these standards, we have to be able to write prose. And we think, in general, these courses are the ones that would satisfy it. So it's really just people, just the committee of people sitting around, because they're not pulling in the curriculum from every college in the United States, right? They're just going, from our experience, what we know is this would probably do it. And so it's been left up to the fire chiefs as to whether or not that meets the standard. For us, as we put together these programs, we look at that, and then we look at our own coursework, and we look at what that what that competency is supposed to be, the ability to write detailed prose. And we know that what they're writing is are documents, right, that are going to be used to reflect what happened on a fire or justification for equipment at this particular level. And then you can go through, because it'll go up to higher levels as you go through each one of these tabs. Does that help?
Yep, thank you.
Yeah. So what this is guidance. This is guidance for fire departments as they're looking at writing hiring, at writing their hiring standards and evaluation standards, and they're talking to their unions. So I am unfortunately old enough to remember getting an email okay, it wasn't that old because there was an email. And it was from a fire chief who was polling and wanting to know why it was necessary for firefighters to be able to read above a 6th grade level. And that blew our minds, because hazardous materials, to just start with. Anyway, so this is, these are our outcome, our competencies that we are working towards. And as you look at this, you can see, right, there's chemistry, there's biology and physical science. And I'm going to tell you today in the fire service, the more science that candidates have coming in, the better their career is going to be and the more options they're going to have. So as we go through here, you can see that this is a managing fire officer up here, pulling in statistics, public speaking, oral communication, critical reasoning, research. Administrative fire officers are up here, economics, principles of management, history, leadership. And we get to executive fire officers. These would be our fire chiefs. And then our fire prevention officers, that was me, and fire investigators. And you'll see there are areas where you're not having anything listed under college courses, but then it's left up to each organization to decide what would in fact fit there. Finally, back at the FESHE site, you can come on over here and play around. You can see our course outlines are here. Recommendations for degree programs are here as well. And so this provides us with a really nice standardized tool to start with, or to start from. Okay, any questions on that? Everybody's
None
good.
in the chat so far, so.
Okay, good. So now let me show you what that translates to. I hope you want to see this, into our textbooks. So within our textbook, so I'm at IFSTA. IFSTA is a major publisher. So what happened was, when we came up with our course outlines, and all the course outlines are written to our common outcomes, we then invited in, I think there were 4 publishers that we had come in, and we presented them with our course outlines and our objectives and said, here's what we need. Today, right, this is 24 years later, we're down to about 2 publishers that are still playing well with us. And they've just released some new curriculum. IFSTA is one of them. This is the International Fire Service Training Association, and this is made up of our training officers. And they work very closely with them. And so our textbooks are set up to the competencies. And you can see that chapter 1, so this is for firefighting. This is the first set of competencies and skills in a fire academy that students would be performing. And I'm gonna give you a skill sheet and show you this. An easy one for everybody to understand would be skill sheet number 2, which is handling emergency and non-emergency phone calls. And let's see if I can put that in here for you guys.
And Suzanne, we did have
Yep.
a question come in through the Padlet. It's got lots of different parts to it, so let me know when you're ready for it.
Okay. Let's see. Am I? No. There we go. Okay. Let's try this again. Okay, I will take the question and I'm going to load up the skill sheet for you.
Oh,
Okay. What you got?
okay. So, are you offering CBE officially recognized by the U.S. Department of Education for financial aid purposes? If so, is it direct assessment CBE, in quotes, totally divorced from the credit hour, or are your courses offering credit hours in regular college terms? Are your courses self-paced, or do students move through together in the usual way? Is your program or are your courses distinguished as CBE in your college catalog and or class schedule?
No to all of those things. So fire tech is CBE by design, but then we had to fit into academia. And so the answer to that is no. And I'm going to show you how we structure things, but we have to fit into the academic model. And so we've got this weird hybrid thing going. And that's where, as we get into CBE and start looking at it, in the real world, that's what we do. In terms of however long it's going to take you to learn this, right? You have to learn it. Now, within our academies and in a fire academy, that is going to be a limited amount of time. Now, they can go home and practice and do a whole bunch of other stuff, but they're going to have to learn it, and they're going to have to learn it within that specific period of time, unless they've learned it before they came in. So today, what we see with a lot of fire departments, especially professional departments. So what you should know is 60% of firefighters are volunteers. Big part of that is because of the amount of training that is needed. So with our working firefighters today, this is the stuff that they need to know, but realistically, they have to learn it in a specific amount of time. So we aren't true CBE, right? Also, the issues with transfer and everything come in. So we're just trying to professionalize ourselves. So I would say police or criminal justice is way ahead of us. So what we're doing is we're finding a way to merge these two things together. If you take a look at that skill sheet for phone calls, what I like about this is it breaks down a very specific task. I hope that's what I put into, that is what I put into the chat, right? Skill sheet. Oh, I think I gave you guys the one which was answering a phone call.
Yes, we got the handle emergency phone call. One was in the chat.
Okay, so if you look at that, you'll see how we break these tasks down, and how very, very specific it becomes. Let's say, let me share. That's kind of where I wanted to be. And so along with that, each chapter, each section is set up and focused on the competencies, both the knowledge and the skill set that is coming out of that. Okay, one more thing, then we're gonna play a game. So now you've seen, took you we started off at the national level, and I showed you, here's where we started, and we came up with these objectives, and we put them all down, and then we came up with the professional development matrix, and then we brought in the textbook publishers and said, hey, we need textbooks to do this, and they did that for us. However, the fire service is not a national service. We're state and local. with the exception of the U.S. Forest Service and Bureau of Land Management. And so what I've brought you to here, and there's a link, there was a link on the Padlet. These are the standards in California for training. And in our Level 1 Fire Academy, these are the standards our students are being trained to. So these are the national NFPA standards that you saw referenced from at the national level. If you click on this Firefighter 1 certification training standards, these are our competencies. Now, remember, I told you competency is going to be both a skill set, knowledge, and the attitude that brings it all together. So as you come in and you look at this one is turning off building utilities. The authority is the job performance requirement that comes from the national standard. And the authority for this in California is also from the Office of the State Fire Marshal. And so as we go through here, we see some requirements that are national that follow everything at the national level, but then we see some that are very specific just to California and were developed by the State Fire Marshal and are unique for us. And so this goes through and it shows this is the requisite knowledge, here are the requisite skills, and this is what we're teaching in class. So the ability to identify disconnect methods and the ability to operate a control valve, both one's knowledge, one is skill, but the competency is putting all of that together in order to be able to turn off the proper building utilities at the right time. And that's where the competency comes in. Now,
can I sneak in one more question before
yes.
I came to the Padlet as well?
Yes.
So for an AA in fire tech, is that a terminal degree that can lead students to general ed student learning outcomes in a fire tech context, but maybe not transferable? Or do you also prepare students to transfer to a 4-year if they wish?
Yeah, and thank you for that question. So here's the deal. Our students will generally come in. So what brings them in? The certificate brings them in. That's what they come for, is the certificate. And by the certificate, I'm talking about that, just a certificate of achievement. But as they're doing it, we try to talk them into finishing the degree. And so that would just be the AA on Plan A. However, we also work with them on transferring. And I spend every single week, I am telling students to go talk to their counselors and tell them they want to finish with Plan A, but not to have them take Plan A classes anymore, to finish it with Plan B so that they can when they're ready to transfer, they can transfer. And speaking of which, you guys want to hear a really cool thing that we've got going on?
Sure.
Maybe I've got a thing with it. The university, I hate to give this away, but I will. The University of Alaska at Fairbanks, UAF Fairbanks, has got a bachelor's program students can transfer into. When they finish their 60 units with us, they can transfer up there under WUI, which is all right, but not great because because of the hunting and fishing. But they can transfer up there. They will hire them and pay them $33,000 a year to work as firefighters while they go to school. And they can go to paramedic school. They can finish up their bachelor's. They can finish up their AA if they want, or a master's degree. It is amazing. They go up there and they come back with like 2 years of full-time paid experience. And it is amazing. They're fighting fire. They're driving the quints, the biggest rigs at the age of 21 on ice. And that's just not done down here. It's really an amazing program. Question?
Oh, that's awesome.
I know it, right? So if you have any interest, and I'll find the link to this if you do, we have an information session that we're doing on March 18th on Zoom. It really is an amazing program. Yeah, I'm not going to take up your time with that. But okay, so through the state fire marshal's office, this is where, I'm going to finish this up. So this is where our training standards are, and that goes all the way back to here's what students are supposed to be knowing. So how do we assess this, right? Because that's ultimately what it comes back down to. These are all of the class plans. And then at each college, we add more to it based upon the local needs and our advisory boards. So the last thing I wanted to show you on training documentation and certification. So what you see here are firefighter 1A skill sheets. And each one of these skill sheets are used to evaluate the student's performance. Up here, you see the training record as a PDF. And this is going through and listing all of the skills that they're going to have to perform. So in order to be a firefighter, they're going to have to go through, they're going to go through and they're going to learn all of this stuff. All of these skill sheets are going to be filled out as they go through and learn it all. Then they're going to sit for an exam. It's going to be a cognitive exam that's going to test their knowledge. It's standardized and it is on a computer. Then they go through the psychomotor exam skills summary. So this is where they're going to be performing. Down here, you can see these are scripts. And for the assessment, they're bringing in people that have never met the students before, right? So this is true CBE. So the assessment are people that have never seen the students before. The students don't know. There's a set of skills. Students know that they're going to have to perform, but then there's another set that they have no idea what they're going to perform. And even the evaluators don't know. They're sent down in envelopes from the state. They're opened up and the student's told, this is what you have to do now. And then they perform it in front of the evaluators who assess them using the same rubric or grading standard. So there we have it. And at every single level, so you've got the link here. And if you have an interest, you can come in and you can look at state fire training or just go back one to where it says professional certifications. And then this lists everything you can be certified in the fire service in California. All of those go back to job performance requirements. And those job performance requirements then link back to our outcomes. Questions?
Yes, there's a question in the chat. Could you go through the evaluator process with the skill sheet? How do they award a score without a performance description? So that's a question in the chat.
Okay, that's a good question. And there is a performance description. So let me come back over here and show you where that is. Okay, so I just opened up one of the skill sheets. And so this is what they are. So what you saw before was just a list. This is what they're going to perform. So this is what they're performing it to. So over here, you see candidate's name and their ID number. And is this their first attempt, their second attempt, and which day? And then it's got your performance outcome. The test worked, noting any wear and tear, damage, ensured cylinder pressure was within the department standards, or replaced, etc. You can read that. Candidate directions. You will inspect and prepare the SCBA for reuse and demonstrate and verbalize all checks. The test will begin when I say start. The test will end when you say done. Do you understand these directions? Now, the candidate must complete all steps at 100% in order to receive a passing score. Wears and uses appropriate PPE, SCBA equipment at all times, prepared the SCBA, checks the air cylinder for pressure, and then it goes through, and you can see every single step. Every single step is laid out for them, and that's for the evaluator to look at. In order to be an evaluator, you have to go through training and be certified by the state to be able to evaluate the student's performance. Did that answer your question?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? That's a good question. So students get, so for all of the state standards, so as I go through and tell you more about this, here's something I want you to realize. So as students are coming through our courses, right, we're training them eventually to go to the fire academy. So where there is a skill sheet saying you have to be able to extinguish a class B fire, in my class, they're going to learn what a class B fire is. They're going to learn, or they're going to learn that in another class. My class, they're going to learn how to choose a fire extinguisher that will work with a class B fire, and how to use it, and the things that go into extinguishing that. Now, they're not going to actually extinguish the fire until they get to the fire academy. So until then, right, I need to know that in my class, that's how they're going to use my information. But they also need to know that I'm not just making them learn stuff about class B fire extinguishers just because, that this is something that they're going to have to apply and use later. So everything that they're learning is being built upon, right? Every prerequisite is there for a reason. Another very cool thing is, as they're going through our program and they're learning more stuff, they are improving their resumes and increasing their ability to get jobs. And I'm talking about jobs that help them pay for their academy and start getting experience that is related to their final goal. And that's something that, right? So the thing about CTE that's beautiful is people come in and they take our classes because they want to take them. So I want to tell you a quick story about a student. So the student was incarcerated. She was incarcerated when she was in junior high school. She grew up here in Santa Ana, California, and her parents were immigrants who were not here legally, and they did not speak English, nor had they ever graduated high school. This young lady, so she's incarcerated, she gets out when she's 26. While she was incarcerated, I don't know if any of you remember, but there's an area north of Santa Barbara, La Conchita, and there had been a mudslide that had buried a bunch of houses and some people. She was in California Youth Authority at the time and was on that rescue. She eventually gets out of prison and decides she wants to be a firefighter. She's about 5 feet tall and does not speak English well, does not speak Spanish well. But she's graduated from high school, and she's the first person in her family to have done that. And she shows up at our school, and she wants to be a firefighter. Long story short, she took every class I taught twice. She ended up not becoming a firefighter. She wanted to become a fire prevention officer, but she didn't want to get the degree. She only wanted the certificate. And her reading skills were not much better than her writing, or than her her reading, her writing, her speaking skills. They were all really horrible. But she made it through. She made it through. She took every class twice. She needed a ton of help. I got her into EOPS, and she was getting services. She eventually decided she wanted a certificate. So she went back and she took the classes on for Plan A. And she got her degree. And I said to her, wouldn't this have been easier if you took, wouldn't my classes have been easier if you would have taken English first? And she said, Mrs. Freeman, she said, yeah, they would have. But she said, I'll be honest with you. If I had to have started with English and math, I wouldn't have stayed. Going through the CTE classes made me realize I'm not going to be able to get the job if I can't read or do math. And that's why I came back and did that. So, right, what motivates students is what they're going to be able to do with the information in the end. So with that. Oh, I do want to share this with you because this is another gift. So there's all kinds of stuff out there for our students, and right, if they're motivated, they go for it. So this is the website for the Los Angeles Fire Department. They are recruiting, but I want you to see what they have down here at the bottom. The very first link is a nutrition guide. It's incredibly important for firefighters to understand how to feed their body. The next one is the fitness manual. You want to talk about competency-based education? It starts off with, here's what your goals are. And it shows how to do each skill, but it's 16 weeks. 16 weeks where if somebody wanted to, it shows them exactly how to work out each and every day. Here's an oral interview prep. Now, the students go in here and they buy this stuff. If they have to buy it, this stuff's free. And they eat this up. But wait a minute, this is what we're teaching in class. How come they're not eating that up? They are, if we make the connections for them. When we go in and we look at the oral interview, we learn that they're looking for more than just skills. We learn that they're looking for more than just knowledge.
We do have another question if you're up for it.
What's that?
Have any of your fire tech students leverage non-credit instruction to help prepare for your program? Is that something that you might recommend to students?
Yes. And they do. Yes, there are a number of non-credit programs, but we can go all the way down to the 7th grade. You've got somebody in the 7th grade, sixth grader who wants to be a firefighter. We're going to tell you straight up, get them to learn a second language, get them to start with, around here, we have the lifeguard programs. And so junior lifeguard, then lifeguard aid, then lifeguard, the Explorer programs. And you would think I would say the Fire and Police Explorer. I wouldn't say that. I would tell students young people, to go to the Sea Scouts. Why Sea Scouts? Because of the competencies. In Sea Scouts, they teach these kids to sail, fiberglass boats, read navigational maps. They get an open water captain's license by the time they're 18. You have to be 18 to get your EMT. So I'd tell them, go get your captain's license, because the skill set that you learn fiberglassing a boat and sailing it with other people is just huge. And that feeds into everything else, including EMT and the physical fitness end of things, and working in a team, and just everything that goes into this career. And so with that, the non-credit courses absolutely are important. And a lot of our classes are on the credit side of the house, the prep classes, but they're numbered less than 100. Because they're exactly that, preparation classes that can be taken over and over. But we run into the repeatability issue a lot. What else?
I think that was it for now. So thank you. And I'm gonna
Okay.
start telling my 3-year-old who is obsessed with firefighting and wearing his jacket and hat around all the time. We're gonna start getting you into some classes and explore.
Right. Oh, here's another thing for leadership. When I get students, especially the young ones coming in, I'll tell them to go to the Orange County, to the animal control, and volunteer to walk dogs, because all they have are Chihuahuas and pit bulls, mostly. If you can walk a Chihuahua or a pit bull, you can walk somebody who is houseless and has not been taking their medication, right? It's about, your leadership is about how you can present yourself with or without words. And that helps build that competency. You get them from all over. So I really want to show you guys this. This is Cal Careers. And these are just jobs in the state of California. But I was on here, right, because I'll come in and look for stuff for my students, but then I find stuff for your students. And so I'm clicking on Orange County because this comes up. This is an agricultural aid, right? It's only $17 an hour. That is not very much, but it's working for the state. It's seasonal, so it's not year-round. It's working for the state of California, which gets you priority for more jobs in the state of California. But here's what I want you to see about this. The prerequisite for this job is one biology class. That's it. It's like one science class. That's all that this is requiring. And how many of you are teaching a class? And, you know, I don't know how many of our biology teachers know that students who take their class now qualified for the seasonal position, which is not schlepping chalupas, right? Not that there's anything wrong with schlepping chalupas, but this is working for the Department of Agriculture. And for my students, if you've worked for the Department of Agriculture, your ability to get picked up as a wildland firefighter goes up exponentially the following season. And here they're just picking up bug traps. And it's just a seasonal job, but it's a job. And it's a job with the state of California. So there are all kinds of those in here, but nobody's going to click on this. So the other thing I tell students, and let me show you this other place for really cool jobs. So this is governmentjobs.com. It really is.
Wow,
Eventually, it will be.
Suzanne, while you're
Yes.
waiting the patient load, there's a question. So you briefly mentioned credit for prior learning earlier. Could you speak to how or whether CPL is leveraged with this program design?
Okay, I'm sorry. My headphones cut out. I'm gonna have to ask you to repeat that.
Oh, no worry. Yeah. So you briefly mentioned credit for prior learning earlier. Could you speak to how or whether CPL is leveraged with this program design? So I cannot hear. Is that just me? I cannot hear. Can you try unmute?
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So we have people who will come in who get training, who will be like trained by a fire department. And then they'll want to transfer the training over, or we'll offer courses, but they'll also be offered for state, where the state will give you credit for it, where people can, like, there are classes I can teach out of my garage and charge people for it, and they'll get a certificate from the state, but it won't count for credit for a degree. They'll come in with those and say, well, can we have a degree for this? And that's where the credit for prior learning comes in. So that's where they come in and they ask for it. So we get a lot of people who will come in with training records from military experience, from other states, from other countries, and they'll come in looking for credit for that. And so we haven't done a lot of it. It's been around, And now we're being asked to take another look at that and where that can come in, and be what role that can play. And so we're definitely looking at that. But right now we only deal with it on a case-by-case basis. We haven't had a lot. The ones that I've dealt with have been horrible and a really horrible experience, but it's there and the potential is there to use it. So I'm more of a fan of credit by exam, but that's just me personally. Okay, and I hope that did that answer it?
I think it should be okay. Thank you.
Okay, so this is government jobs, and I'm just going to put in fire. I can leave this open and go anywhere and go throughout the entire United States, or I can limit it to just California. And I'm going to do that because a lot of different things will come up. And if I'm talking to students, I don't want them to look at their first position, right? I want them to look at, where do you think you're going to be? And so as we go through here, we can see that. But the other lesson is you can't just look at the titles. You have to also look at the pay, because sometimes there will be a fancy title with a low pay that people will qualify for. And if you don't apply, right, the answer is always going to be no. Another secret is whatever people are looking for, if they put in fire and then they put in trainee, generally these are going to be positions that they will pay for training. So there's a firefighter trainee. This one, they are paying for training. If you already have your EMT, they will pay you to go through the fire academy. Other ones will want you to have already had some of the training done. And so each one is different. And that's why you can't just, if you're looking for something, you can't just not look at it. You got to open it up and see what they're actually asking for. So, okay, jobs. So straight up, this is what motivates students. And in a CTE program, it's super easy to see that. However, in a regular academic program, they're there for the same reason. And the question becomes, how do they apply it? And I love talking to my students about your classes, because everything you teach applies to us. It all burns, and it's all burned at one point or another, or it needs to be protected. So everything relates. And once students understand how it relates, suddenly their education becomes so much more interesting. So with that, I want to play again. I am a fan. So as we were looking at credit by, or not credit by examination, sorry, competency-based education, our focus is on teaching students competencies they can take into the workforce. Like I said, my thing is you're learning for a living, not a test, but you got to pass the test. But if you're learning it for the living, you get the test. And so what does that mean? That means not only do I recognize this information, not only can I do the skill, but I can do it in different places. I can solve different problems. We never, ever teach our students how to deal with anything that they ever face. They literally, everything that they deal with is something that we did not teach them. We teach them generally what they can expect and how to deal with it. But we don't teach them how to deal with every specific situation they're going to find themselves in. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been teaching on Zoom for way too long. I go into a grocery store and they're like, did you find everything? And I'm like, I couldn't find the bread. And they're like, lady, what's up with your hands? I'm like, I'm a Zoom teacher, sorry. In any case, there have been studies, lots of studies that have shown that our faces are not interesting when people can't smell us. Students are enjoying remote and distance classes since the pandemic more because they don't like doing the transportation. And although everybody prefers to learn in person, everyone's willing to give up some of that for convenience. And with that comes, right, when students are learning for a living, not a test, here's what that means to me. I teach fire prevention, right? That was my deal. And I know my kids are not going to keep me at home when I get older. They're going to put me in a home. And God has a sense of humor. And that means one of my students is going to be responsible for inspecting the facility, right? Or it's going to catch on fire and they're going to respond to it. So making sure they understand what they're doing is in my own best interest. And just so you know, I have had students respond to medical emergency that I have had where they're like, Mrs. Freeman. And I was like, oh, thank God I'm wearing a bra. You know, it just, they come in, paramedics come up and they're like, that last test in your class kind of sucked, Freeman. And it was like, oh, just stop. So, right, your health and my health is based upon what they learn in class and what they take away. The other thing that is critical to me is that they know what they're taking away and they can explain that to a hiring committee. Here's what I know, here's what I'm good at, and here's what I'm bringing. So let's do a little review of competency-based education. This is Kahoot, and I'm going to use the last part of our time to invite you to try some different apps that are used, that I use to engage students. So this is Kahoot, and I don't know if you've played Kahoot before or not, but it is one of my favorites. So I just put a link to this into the chat, but you can use your phone and grab that QR code because this is easier. Well, I don't know that it's easier. I think it's more fun to play on your phone, but it's up to you. So come on in. And then I am going to give you a link. Let me hide this. I'll be giving you a link if you want to come in and play with Kahoot and see if it works for you. So what I like about Kahoot, you can use this to present information. You can record yourself. You'll see, use video in it. There's a number of different question styles. It can be presented live. It can be presented asynchronously. And the really cool thing that I like about it are some of the programs. And if you have the EDU version and put it into a classroom, it will modify itself for students. So it will modify to their learning needs and it'll figure out what they're having trouble with and it'll give them more practice with that. And so that's really kind of nice. And you get a report as well. Some of the other things I like about this is, oh, let me move that so you can see the QR code. You can also set this up so if you're playing it, people can come into it live, into the live game and they can enter it in the middle of the game. So one last time, you can come in. I think I put a link into the chat. You can grab that QR code. You can also go to www.kahoot.it. You have the app, you can get it through there as well. There's also, now that I remember, Kahoot will be doing an EDU workshop, I think next week. They've got a couple of days. If anybody's interested, I'd be happy to share the link. So, okay, let me get this started. If you're not yet in, feel free to come in and join us or just watch. So I've tried to put in a variety of different slides so you can see or experience what this is like. So what do you already know about competency-based education? Okay, so there's the average response from people in the room. Now, if you would like to join us, you can go to kahoot.it and the game pin is 2523077. There's also a link in the chat and you can join our game. Okay, so what is one skill you teach your students? One skill students are learning in your class. And if you want to join us, kahoot.it, and the game pin is 2523077. Navigating academia, donning PPE, technical writing, critical thinking, interviewing, communication, safety, writing a function, painting. Excellent. Thank you. Now, what's a competency your students leave your class with? Remember, this is going to include multiple skills. This could be communication, critical thinking. Mine might be inspecting assembly occupancies. One competency. If you want to join us, we're at kahoot.it and the game pin is 2523077. Got 9 more seconds. So measurement, theory versus application, research, critical thinking, new vocabulary from context, more critical thinking, communication, critical thinking, basic history, critical thinking and technology, curriculum development, communication, problem solving. Nice. Whoops. Okay. Let's see. Do I have the sound on? Oh, I do, but not up. See if that works. Do you,
Clear disconnect exists.
are you guys able to hear that?
What it takes to fix.
No, I think when you share, you
Yeah.
probably need to share the audio. So when you click on
Oh,
the
okay. Got you on the
audio.
got it. I thought I had checked that. Okay. Sorry about that. This is short and sweet.
The world of work is changing rapidly. Today's learners are looking for opportunities to succeed in the workplace.
Okay, can you hear it now?
Yes, yes.
However, a clear disconnect exists between higher education and what it takes to succeed in today's workforce. 40% of recent graduates are underemployed, working in jobs that don't require their level of education, with women and Black graduates especially likely to be doing so. Holding a degree doesn't mean you have the skills to get the job you want. Only half of employers view a college degree as a fairly reliable representation of skills and knowledge. But there is a way to make education more valuable. By shifting higher education to focus on what a person actually knows and can do, learners earn a credential that is more flexible, relevant, and valuable. By emphasizing competencies, knowledge, skills, abilities, and behaviors, colleges can personalize learning by closing the gaps between what each learner knows and what they need to thrive in their chosen career. This makes the credential more valuable to the learner and to employers. That is what competency-based education is all about. Competency-based education provides all learners equal opportunity to apply their life experiences to education and creates customized journeys to get learners where they want to go. Most importantly, it shifts learning from the abstract to the real world of work. By focusing on the competencies that employers want and need, colleges make education more relevant and valuable. Join CBEN in this movement to unlock opportunities for all learners.
Okay, what percent of recent graduates found themselves underemployed as of like June of last year? So 40% found themselves underemployed. And I hear this from students all the time. They show up and they're like, oh, this is what I'm doing. And it's like, but wait, you're qualified to do these other things. And there's the lead. Okay, let's try another one. What question are employers now placing a premium on? That's right. That's right. What can you do? God, and everybody got that one right. I love it when that happens. If you want to join us, we're at kahoot.it, and the game pin is 2523077, and Ruth has taken the lead. What model does competency-based education represent a shift from? You can see at the bottom of my screen is the pin number if you want to join us. Time-based learning. So this is the shift. So in competency-based education, you are not being replaced. Teachers are still required. Not as much, but we're still required. The difference is the time-based learning. So like I told you, we're not a true CBE because we're still time-based, right? You've got 16 weeks inside this academy to figure out how to do this. In true CBE, there is no time. You come in and you take as long as you need in order to finish what it is you're trying to achieve. Newbie takes the lead and JoJo's in second place. What's the purpose of competency-based education? Yeah, that's it exactly. Oh, I'm so glad you remembered that. It's bridging those learning gaps. And the reason this is coming back is because what we've learned where that gap is between our academic outcomes and the real needs of business and industry. And so we want students to be able to take the knowledge and use their skills and attitudes and move what they're learning in our classroom into their career. How does CBE differ from traditional learning models in terms of pacing? You'll get this. We differ because good, that's right. That's right. It is flexible. Ours is different because it's not really that flexible. You got 16 weeks. Hey, JoJo took the lead. What is one benefit of CBE for our students? This might be tricky. Yeah, so personalized learning, they're learning for a living, but we're not going to give that to them. Remember, I told you students can come through our program, get straight A's, and never get that job. So we're giving them a skill set that they can sell, but there's no guarantees that go along with it. What we are giving them is personalized learning, and that's the beauty of this, right? If you need to take longer to learn how to don your PPE, you can take longer to learn that. If you want to learn it by hands-on or with small groups with tutoring. So there's different ways of doing it and finding what meets students' needs. This is not quick, cheap, and easy. It's anything but. So what is CBE? What does that stand for? This is a puzzle. You're going to grab those and just move them. And just remember, first one starts with C, the last one starts with E. Hey, and that's right, competency-based education. I know you'd look at that and you go, Suzanne, you really expected anyone to get that one wrong, but you would be surprised. Hey, newbie's holding it, and Monica's now on the board. True or false? Competency-based education focuses on demonstrating skills or knowledge before progressing in learning. What do you think? You got to prove it before you can move on? That's exactly correct. And that is the way it works. And so in a true CBE program, you have to master the level before you can move on to the next one and demonstrate your proficiency. Okay, what is one benefit of CBE for students? Good, that's right. Real world applicability of skills, because on our campus, there is no such thing as free parking. Well, for 20 minutes. Okay, what's one advantage of competency-based education in recognizing learning outside of school? Yes, so recognizing and validating skills, certificates, badges, awards, something that says, yes, you got this, and here's some proof of it, and it's valued. So what worries you most about CBE? There's a lot of things that worry me about CBE. What worries you? If you want to join us, you can go to kahoot.it, not .com, IT. The game pin is 2523077. You can just jump on in with us. Twenty seconds remaining. Implementation and buy-in. So yeah, that is huge. In order for CBE to work, that is one of the non-negotiable parts of it, is you have to have a buy-in. Buy-in from administration is just critical. Without that, you got nothing. But you also have to get buy-in from your stakeholders, whoever those may be. Who's the industry in your area, who's hiring your students? We have that data. And so buy-in, and then where are they transferring to? Those are stakeholders as well. Are they going to value whatever it is that we're doing or producing? If it's a badge, is that something that will be recognized? Accreditation, absolutely. Standards and interpretation, too much student independence or self-pacing, translating skills into grades. This may or may not apply to all classes. And then what would concern me as well is training of the faculty. Implementation and onboarding faculty is absolutely huge. And then, right, everything that comes in with testing, when we have to hire people to work as evaluators, right, to do the testing. And so we still have to go through all of the process for that. And how to articulate competencies. So the articulation of the competencies is basically breaking them down. And there's a number of different places that can help you with that. So how should content be organized in a CBE curriculum? If we're doing this to teach people how to achieve competencies, what do you think the best organization would be? Yeah, competency. Remember, students go at different paces. And in true CBE, every student's going to be going at a different pace. You may have one student who completes everything in a month and another student where it may take them 4 months to complete it. So it's going to be put out by competency. And so in order to answer a phone in a fire station, here's everything you're going to need to know. And then they're going to go through the process of doing all of that before, and then, right, once that competency is done, they can move on to answering a radio or whatever's next on the list. And Alicia has taken the lead. Okay, what does CBE recognize in learning? Skills and knowledge. So remember, this is not just skills. Skills and competency are not interchangeable. Skills are part of the competency, and there's more than one skill that will be part of, typically, there will be more than one skill that'll be part of a competency. So it's still skills and knowledge, right? And if you go, well, I'm just a knowledge instructor, I'm not teaching a skill, that's not always true. What do people do with that knowledge? Do they tell a story with it? Does it inform them as citizens? Does it, how do they use this and what do they do with it? What's the first step in structuring a curriculum for competency-based learning? This just came out. Single most important thing. First thing. Outcomes. It all starts with the end in mind. What is your goal? And I'm going to tell my student their goal isn't to get to the fire academy. That's not the goal. The goal is to be a firefighter. The fire academy is just a step towards that goal. So it starts with the outcomes. Where do you want students to end? What's it going to look like? And I would challenge you to do this for every class. At the end of this week, or the end of this class, or the end of this lecture, what will be different? I tell my students, if you come in for a 16-week program and you're the same person at the end of the 16 weeks, you've wasted your money. That $46 a unit is supposed to transform you. A little bit. You get what you pay for. What's the purpose of personalized learning in competency-based education? That's right. The goal here is to meet each student's individual needs and their learning style. And so if we were doing this for like, oh, I don't know, EMT, and it takes one person longer to master the pharmacology of an emergency medical technician, then they get to do that. And everybody who has a willingness to learn can take as much time as they need to learn what it is they need to learn. And so this is the best when it comes to equity, because everybody, if your check clears, you've got potential. But to move on, you've got to master the last thing. So you continue by mastering each competency and then moving forward. And you get to learn it in your best style, which is then the challenge for the instructor. And that means flexible modules. Who should be involved in establishing competencies and outcomes in competency-based education? This is multiple answers, so choose all that you think would be reasonable. What should a student at the end of your program be able to do? Who should have a say? Yes, yes, alumni, industry professionals, and faculty. Not so much our parents. Students or faculty who are parents, perhaps, but alumni, right? Who has graduated from the program? Were the competencies enough? Did we train you well enough for what it is you're doing, for your transfer or your career? What about industry? Did we teach them the right things? Can they use the software? Can they use the equipment? Can they use the terminology or nomenclature? Okay, how do you feel about Canvas, our learning management system? Just personally. I'm sure you have feelings. What's your relationship with the learning management system? Come on, you only got one more second. Okay, basically everybody's on good terms with Canvas. That's awesome because when it comes to competencies, Canvas is our friend. What role can your learning management system play in competency-based education? You can do more than one thing. Check all that apply. They all look good, don't they? Yeah, that's right. It does it all. It does it all. So I don't know if you guys have used outcomes. I love outcomes. They've been kind of disabled for us, but outcomes, you can put those in and then put the outcomes on your rubrics. And at the end of the semester, if you go over to the mastery gradebook, it's amazing. It shows you in color who's mastered what, and it shows you which ones students are having issues with. So at least I can up my teaching game. So here's another question. Have you used third-party apps in Canvas? So that would be like linking in stuff like that, like Kahoot or Educaplay or Perusal. Flipgrid. There's lots of different ones. Okay. Some of you have, some of you are like, yeah, okay. And some of you, oh yes, no problem. And the rest of you are like, third-party app. So Kahoot would be a third-party app. Okay, double points on this one. Why is it important to integrate assessments into competency-based education? Purpose of assessment. Good. Mostly to both offer feedback to the student if we're talking about formative assessment and evaluating their understanding when we're looking at and performance, right? Evaluating their performance as well if we're looking at summative. So whether it's formative or summative, it's critical. Assessment is absolutely critical. And now let me take it one step further. In both formative and summative assessment, there has to be both peer assessment and self-assessment and reflection. I know, but it turns out that when we put it all in, they perform amazingly and they learn for a living, not just a test. So feedback fruits is another tool that we've been given, and I'm just starting to play with it. I wanted to share with you the response of a student this week. We were doing, it was a writing assignment where they had to complete an inspection notice and write a letter, and they did this as a group. Then they had to do peer reviews, self-reviews, then they had to review the reviews. One student came back, and I told them they were guinea pigs because I hadn't used it before. And one student came back and said he could see in an English class how that program would be the freaking bomb. And it worked through. They had to create the documents. They had to assess their own documents. They had to assess other people's documents. Then they had to read the assessments on their documents. And then they had to rate the people who assessed their own documents. And it was awesome. and Alicia is in the lead. Okay, why is authenticity important in CBE assessment? Why is authenticity important? And it is critical. Yes, yes, yes. To simulate real world challenges. We want students to see how they're going to apply this. And that's important so they can articulate what they know. They don't always know what they know. For double points, how can technology aid the delivery of competency-based education? Yes, technology can do all of those things. And now, right, some of you may be afraid of technology. Don't be. Here's another thing. So one of the classes that I'm teaching is an advanced class, and this has got a lot of old people in it. By old people, I mean people who are retiring and changing careers. And I make them play these damn games. And they come back and they go, Suzanne, I don't like playing these damn games. And I'm like, I know, but you're going to have to play them anyway. And so I make them do check-ins, right? And on the check-in, what all the people said who are like, I don't like playing these games. Second week, it's like, okay, I don't like the games, but man, they really do help me learn. And then the third week was like, I'm still not a fan of games, but I have to admit, it really helped me know the information. So love it, hate it. If it works, that's the point of the exercise. Okay, which of the following assessment features have you used in Canvas? Which ones do you have experience? Have you tried? Like I said, I'm a fan of outcomes, but that was disabled on our campus for some reason. Okay, good. So a few of you have used outcomes. Like I said, I really like that. New quizzes, the question pools can get tied into your outcomes really nicely. And with quizzes now, you can also put rubrics onto them with your outcomes on the rubrics so that it gets tied back into the reporting. I like that a lot. Good. A lot of you are using rubrics. That makes life so nice. And I'm telling you, when you start putting the outcomes on the rubrics, it gives you a report at the end of the semester. That's beautiful. Two of you are trying Mastery Paths. I'd like to talk to you about that because I haven't used it, but I really want to. I just haven't figured it out yet. Graded surveys, I'm going to tell you, is one of the secrets that I've learned because students won't do anything if there's not a grade attached to it. And sometimes I'm having them do stuff like a Kahoot or something like that. It's not a heavily weighted thing, but I want them to do it. And so I found I can use graded surveys where I can ask them questions, feedback questions about it, and they can put the answers in and get an automatic grade on it. And I can go back and I warn them that when I go back and I check the website to ensure that they finished what they said they finished, that I have the right to change their grade if they lied. But it gives them feedback really fast on it and gets me information. So, and records it. So it's an easier way than having to go through everything. You still have to go through it, but it gets done a lot quicker. So that was a hack. Double points on this one. What's the purpose of supplementary resources in competency-based education? So Kahoot would be an example of a supplementary resource. Very nice, very nice. So supplementary resources are offered to tailor the learning experience and to give students extra help. So I can leverage something like Kahoot, like this game, and I can take this and I can use this as a general learning tool, but I can also duplicate it and break it up into smaller components and then make that available for students trying to learn it who want to do it in smaller bites, or create something that's more focused. So what are some great ideas for assessing communication competencies that are authentic and realistic? So if you're teaching communication skills in your class and you wanted to test the competency, what's something that you can do? Record conversation, have students record conversations, video, do a video of in conversation or communication, writing emails or memos, reports, letters to the editor, articles, blogs. What fits with your topic and how it's to be used. You're going to tell a story, use it to explain something. Making a phone call, leaving a phone message. I've done that before, where the assignment was to call me and leave a voicemail message on a specific topic. Role play. Okay, let's see what y'all came up with. Live class presentations, oral presentations, writing. Go through, take a look, and vote on the ones that you like. Good. Thank you so much for for joining in with that. This is brainstorming, and this is one of the newer features on here. We put it in and then everybody votes. And we went through it a little bit fast, but I appreciate you playing along. Here's a quick word cloud. What's your favorite third-party teaching or learning app? I told you I like Kahoot. Quizlet, I also like a lot. And Edge you could play. Do you have one? Do you have one? Mentimeter, Slido, Chat GPT, Kahoot, Duolingo. Oh, I love Duolingo. Kahoot. One of the things I love about Duolingo is learning to put together these other lessons. Thank you for joining into the word cloud. Okay, this is the speed round. True, false questions coming up, but you only got 10 seconds for each one. Let's see how you do. Competency-based learning offers a student-focused approach. 5 more seconds, quick. Yeah, it's true. Competency-based education tailors learning to individual needs. True or false? Four seconds. 2. Nice. Oh, I love it when that happens. Okay, true or false? Double points. Competency-based education offers a one-size-fits-all solution. Yeah, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. It's very personalized. Okay, true or false? Double points, kids. Competency-based education focuses on time-based learning. Yeah, you guys are good. Does not, right? They get as much time as they need. Okay, true or false? Double points. CBE helps prepare students for the workforce by emphasizing theoretical knowledge. Yeah, that's false. Not theoretical. We want to know what they can do. We want them to apply it. True or false? Double points. Competency-based education focuses on demonstrating skills or knowledge before progressing in learning. Yes, that is true. One step at a time, one bite at a time. So, how does CBE benefit students?
Suzanne, while we're waiting on this, we do only have about 5 minutes left.
We're done, yeah.
Just in case anybody has any questions, they might want to type in the chat. I'll keep an eye to see if there's anything there, just in case, as we try to finish this up.
Okay, thank you. Yes, apply skills, gives them practical knowledge, flexible learning, preparing them for the workforce or the job market, emphasizing skills, allowing them to self-pace. I love you guys. Okay, what excites you most about CBE? Anything? Going to lunch. So, and as you're finishing that up, I'll tell you what excites me about it. Being able to show students what they're learning and how it applies, open their eyes, showing them jobs and the fact that they're already qualified for these jobs and they already have these skill sets. When students come in, telling them they don't have to learn the stuff they already know how to do, right? You have to learn the stuff you haven't mastered yet. I had a student this week tell me, Suzanne, I thought I signed up for a class to get a job. But what I realize now is we're being trained to be successful for a career. And that's what we do. And that's what excites me about CBE, at least the non-traditional style, because there's still issues putting that square peg into that round hole. Okay, let's see what you guys said. Potentially change the face of education, practical education and training, focusing on the career, teaching them real skills and knowledge. I'm telling you, watching them apply this is just so satisfying. New way for education and making it more valuable. Not just the test, but for the real world. And then here's the other thing, and this is what I hear from the fire chiefs. Show the students how their skills are applicable. So the fire chiefs tell me when our students go to them, they can talk about what they've learned, not just recite the terms. They really have an understanding. Did this activity help you at all? Oh, thank you. I very much appreciate that feedback. So I think that this is a very cool tool. Like I said, it's one of my favorite and it's an easy one to use. Jarek, congratulations. Stephen came in second and in first place. We've got B. And Shani and Alicia, 4 and 5. Good showing to everybody. Now, I do want to show you at the end of these, right? I will get a report, but we can also go in and we can view a summary of the questions that gave us the most issue. So again, this is one of those tools that will that can be used to help students go on a more personalized path and to go back and spend more time with the topics if they need to do that. So as we're ending, and we are ending, on here, there are links to all kinds of other cool tools. Perusal is one of my favorites because it's social reading and discussion, put videos and all kinds of stuff, and it integrates beautifully with Perusal. GimKit, another one. Quizlet is in there. Go through, take a look. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you so much for your attention today and for playing along. I really do appreciate it. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. And for those of you who need to leave, thank you again for your time. Okay, so Padlet, who has questions? So if everybody's good, then I will share this out. You don't have to do anything with it, but you might like to see it. And what I'm sharing with you is another type of Padlet. And this is, they make them. It's like AI is so cool. And that is a survey that goes over outcomes, and you can make these at all different levels. Just another form of feedback.
Didn't even know
Anyway.
you could do that.
Huh?
I didn't even know you could do that with Padlet, so that's something new also. Thank
Well,
you.
I know it. It's like all of this stuff has got different, they put different things into it. Oh, the last thing, for those of you still hanging out, one of my favorite things to do with AI is go in and put in my prompts from before AI and ask AI to revise it so that AI can't answer it. Right? So I'll say, here's a prompt, and please help me revise this so that you and other AIs would not be able to answer it. And it does that, which is kind of cool.
Well, thank you so much. I think we all gained a lot of really helpful tools. I really appreciate you sharing that Padlet with us. I just shared it again in the chat. So if anybody wanted to look at it again, they could, and I have it now bookmarked. So I really appreciate that and all of the wonderful information we received.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Suzanne. This was great. Really, this is yeah, fantastic work. All the materials will be recorded and posted on the culture's website. So thank you so much. Until
Thank
next
you.
time. Thank you. We'll see you all next week. Thanks, Alicia and Benny. Take care, guys.
Thank you. Okay.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.